Hello, friends. It is time to definitively talk about this little guy here, at least in terms of who he's going to nominate. It's what I've spent the last 4 or 5 months obsessing over, and for anyone who's come with me on that journey, I thank you. This video is a little later than I was hoping because Babylon came out in Australia a week ago, and I liked it a lot, and I've gone to see it 5 times in the last week, so that's been eating up a lot of my free time. So yeah, don't worry. I haven't gone and wishfully over predicted it in a bunch of categories. I think I've been pretty sensible with most of my Oscar predictions here. And a lot of it is most categories feel like they have 3 to 4 locks, and then there's a fifth spot that is sort of tricky and a toss up. And I'm really, really excited, and I hope we get some fun surprises. So let's get into it. These are my in-depth predictions for all 23 categories, including the short films. I've done my research on those short films to the best of my ability, and I really feel like I've put in the hard yards and done the best I can do with these predictions. So yeah, I hope they help. Now, starting with the big one, Best Picture. Now, for the last month or even more, we've had that sort of top 7 that we're all comfortable with. Everything Everywhere would be if I had to predict who wins right now, it'd be that, but that's not what we're talking about today. Banshee's incredibly strong. The Fabelmans slipping a little bit. It didn't do so well at the BAFTAs, but I'm still pretty confident that the Oscars are going to go for it in a big way. Tar, I've been saying this all night, it is a top 5 contender. I almost was tempted to put it third, so I don't think you can count out Tar in any of the major categories. Top Gun Maverick, perhaps not a potential winner like it initially looked at some point, but it's in there. Elvis has been a kind of a juggernaut, and look out because I think it's going to get a lot of craft nominations. Avatar: The Way of Water, some people have this lower or even missing, but I don't know. I feel like there's going to be enough industry love and respect for James Cameron, and while it might not get everything we thought it would, I think it's pretty entrenched in that Best Picture lineup. And then we get to those last 3 spots, and I think most people have collectively agreed on at least what 8 and 9 are. I know some people have Western Front a bit higher, but yeah, I do think The Whale and All Quiet on the Western Front, pretty confident in those getting in. The Whale definitely resurfaced, getting that Producers Guild nomination. It did well at the BAFTAs, and suddenly it's alive in Screenplay and Supporting Actress. So the film's making money. Like, for such a small movie to get that PGA nomination is kind of a big deal. I'm actually seeing it tonight. I'm seeing it about 8 hours from now. And it's one of the last contenders I'm really yet to see besides Women Talking, which sadly doesn't even look like much of a contender anymore. So very excited to see what I think of The Whale, but audiences are loving it despite maybe critics groups not really going for it. The industry now are really starting to go for it. And I think it's a pretty good one to predict for a Best Picture nom. And All Quiet on the Western Front obviously dominated the BAFTAs. It's hard to read where it sits in the grand scheme of things because it surged so late and didn't really get anything at the other precursors. But if shortlist performances are anything to go by, it made all the BAFTA shortlists, and then it got all the nominations. Now, Oscars don't shortlist every category, but it made pretty much every Oscar tech shortlist that it could. So if we are going to bet on shortlist meaning performance, then I think we do have to kind of look at Western Front as our big international contender, as we have had one the last few years. So I think it's a pretty good bet. Again, I don't think it's like the certainty that a lot of people do, but beyond, that's the 9 that I really have faith in. And beyond that, it's kind of a bit of a dogfight. I've gone with Triangle of Sadness getting in at 10th. I know some people have Babylon here, but I just think that movie might end up being too divisive. I know that every year we have that one kind of negatively reviewed film get in, like a Don't Look Up type thing. But I just don't think... I think Babylon is even more abrasive than that and less palatable. And I don't think it's impossible because the people who love it really love it. But I think Triangle of Sadness genuinely has a lot of fans and a lot of passion behind it, and it's one that is really playing with more casual audiences. And rich people love flagellating themselves. They love movies about how rich people are bad, like Parasite and stuff. So yeah, I feel like Triangle of Sadness has sort of built back up at the right time. It hasn't done massively with precursor awards, but I think it's popped up in enough places for me to buy it as a sort of pseudo international contender, even though it's in English. It's just that art house sort of pick that has widespread appeal. As we get to the other contenders, I definitely have not counted out Babylon. Um, because I do think it is a strong contender in some text. I think it's in contention to win score and costumes, and there's probably two other nominations I think it could get, and there are a lot that it deserves but won't get. But it definitely could be this year's Nightmare Alley. That's a comparison I've seen a lot bandied about a lot, but I think people like Babylon even less than Nightmare Alley. It was more Nightmare Alley wasn't so much divisive as it was it's not Guillermo's best work, but they still went for it. Whereas Babylon really is kind of a love it or hate it type deal. So I don't quite have the stones to put it in my 10, but I won't be shocked if it gets in. Women Talking really has fallen out. When I first did my predictions, I had it probably third or fourth. I thought it would just be a shoo-in, and it has great reviews, but it just is not translating into award success. And I still don't really know why. I think they've kind of botched their campaign. The release came too late. Australia, we don't even get it for another 3 weeks, so I haven't even been able to see it yet. But yeah, it's looking like it's hanging on by a thread, and it might need to sneak a surprise acting nomination for it to get in that Best Picture lineup. RR I still have hanging around the mark. A month ago, I would have probably put it in my 10, but it just is running out of gas. It didn't win the Golden Globe. Didn't get a BAFTA nomination. I do think that might just be because the monarchy, the villains in it, but or British imperialism, but it just feels like it's run out of gas a little bit, and it feels like that Natu Natu potential song win has taken on a life of its own, and the movie doesn't really need to get into Best Picture or anything else. Definitely not impossible. People really love it, but I do think All Quiet has taken its place as the token international contender. Glass Onion and Black Panther are kind of in the same category for me in that they both are sequels to a movie that did very well with awards. But the first, Knives Out, didn't get picture, and it looks like Glass Onion is going to follow that exact same trajectory. Once it hit Netflix, people weren't loving it as much as they were that week it was in theaters. Yes, both these films got the PGA nom, but PGA usually go 8 out of 10 for the Oscars, so I've kind of subbed those two out for All Quiet and Triangle of Sadness because the Oscars do like to get a couple of art house type picks in there. I wouldn't be shocked if either got in, but I think it's looking pretty unlikely right now. And then After Sun, look, it hurts me because I was really thinking, like, if the BAFTAs go for it big, maybe we can start predicting it, but the BAFTAs didn't even nominate it for screenplay, let alone director. All it really got was Paul Mescal, so I don't think we can predict After Sun in picture, and spoiler alert, I do think actor is the only thing it has a real shot at anymore. She said every time we think it's dead, it gets like a random screenplay nomination or supporting actress nomination. I don't see it. Most of this stuff is making up the numbers, but it's just stuff that I think is in contention for enough awards for it to be on the Best Picture list. The Woman King, Decision to Leave, Pinocchio, and Living are the last ones rounding that out here. And now we'll move on to Best Director. Daniel's officially my number one. I know Spielberg won the Globe, but I really do think this is theirs to lose. McDonagh and Todd Field are locks. You could even argue that Todd Field is second, and that's what I've been saying from the beginning. Tar is strong. People love it, and I'm glad for that. McDonagh getting in, I really don't think he's going to get 3 billboards this time. This movie has much more widespread support than 3 billboards does, and it being number 2 in picture like I think it is, how can he not get in? Spielberg, I actually think is snubbable, because I was having some discussions with friends, and it's like, could Berger and another international art house person get in? And I'm like, if I have to snub one of that top 4, it is Spielberg. I think he gets in. I don't think he's going to get snubbed, but like if someone does from that top 4, I think he's the one that drops out. I'm not saying it's going to have like a BAFTA level performance. The BAFTAs only gave it like 1 or 2 nominations, but I think it's going to do okay here. But I think it's sort of become this year's Belfast rather than like a genuine Best Picture win contender. 5th, I've just gone with the consensus and going with Edward Berger. Even back when I thought the film was a major contender, I didn't really buy this because he's not a big name, and it feels like someone like Park Chan-wook would make a lot more sense. But I think I'm going to go back in what the BAFTAs do here, because the BAFTAs pretty much always get this right. They predicted it with Parasite. They predicted it with Another Round, getting screenplay and director. They predicted it with Drive My Car, getting screenplay and director. So usually what emerges at the BAFTAs becomes our international frontrunner. This year it just happened to come a lot later than we expected, but it was always on the cards with those shortlists. And look, the director's branch, it's just the directors voting on it. It's industry. So the BAFTAs showing that level of industry respect for the film. I think we have to kind of just have to predict Berger. I do not think he's a lock. Absolutely. I don't think he's the lock that people like Bong Joon-ho or Hamaguchi or even Thomas Vinterberg were. But I think he's a better option than anyone else we have here. And let's bring up the list. James Cameron, I don't think it's impossible, but not getting the DGA nomination, pretty telling. Joseph Kosinski in his place, I don't think that's going to repeat, but just the fact that James Cameron didn't get DGA, it feels like that's really where he should have gotten in. So that makes me not want to predict him. And ditto for Baz Luhrmann, kinda. I still think he could show up here with what a technical juggernaut I feel like Elvis is going to be. But again, I think these mainstream sort of guys really probably needed that guild support, but yeah, a lot of. Then you've got some more art house options: Park Chan-wook, S.S. Rajamouli, Ruben Östlund. Maybe if it gets that Best Picture nomination. Beyond that, I don't really see a lot of these people. Jennifer Prince Bythewood got that surprise BAFTA nomination over Charlotte Wells, which is just unacceptable. Like, I like The Woman King, but Charlotte Wells directed the shit out of After Sun, and I genuinely was so hoping I would be able to maybe predict her here, but she's not happening. Sarah Polley is not happening, and I think sadly we are looking at an all-male lineup this year, and that's just the way things have shaken out, unfortunately. Damien Chazelle Babylon at 15th, which is just, it's so sad to me. I think he should be nominated, but it just, the only place he got in was Critics' Choice when they had like 11 nominees. So yeah, he's not happening. Darren Aronofsky, I've just got him there because it's a Best Picture contender. But yeah, I think probably anyone from that top 10 wouldn't shock me, but beyond that, I think it would be a pretty big surprise. Best Lead Actress, this is one I've played around with a lot, and initially wanted to predict a massive upset, but I don't quite have the balls to go through with it. I'll talk about that in a moment, but I've just gone with the SAG 5 because it just feels safe. Michelle Yeoh, Cate Blanchett, locks. I think Danielle Deadwyler is more of a lock than people think because I think she's going to get a lot of number one votes because most people who do, maybe not, and a lot of people have seen the film compared to these other ones. But I think that most people who have seen it think she's incredible, and there's a good chance they will vote her number one. You can also make a case for her missing, though, because sometimes if someone's not attached to a big movie, then they can miss. So that probably makes two of my predictions here risky, and that the other one being Ana de Armas for Blonde. Viola Davis I almost left out, and some people are just because I guess, again, the film's not a big contender, but I think it would just be silly not to predict her at this point. She's the only one outside of Blanchett and Yeoh who have gotten every single big precursor. So I think we just have to predict Viola Davis. And then Ana de Armas for Blonde, I hate that it's happening. I have no ill will toward her. I don't think she's great in the movie, but I can't fault her effort. And I think she is in general a really good actress. I just don't want that movie anywhere near awards. But she got Golden Globe. She got Screen Actors Guild. She got BAFTA. That's a diverse group, and SAG and BAFTA is proving to be a really, really important combination. And the big miss here, I guess, is Michelle Williams, but there's a few reasons why I think she's not getting in. One, not getting in for SAG is insane because she is so respected in the industry, and like missing BAFTA, it feels like she's just really dropped off a cliff. And I don't love her in the movie. She's one of my favorite actors, but I don't love her in that film, so I'm kind of weirdly okay with her being snubbed. But the other person I want to talk about here is Andrea Riseborough for To Leslie. I had her in my 5 for a bit. I genuinely really want to predict her, and I actually think I am going to predict her on Gold Derby, just because, like, I'm never going to actually win Gold Derby, so why not go for a real YOLO pick and feel like a genius if I get it right. But officially here, I'm predicting that SAG 5, but with the thing with Raspberry is there's been this really interesting grassroots campaign mounting where a bunch of A-listers have been seriously promoting her performance, and they were doing it directly during the Oscar window, and it's like the voting nomination voting window, and it's a campaign that I really took notice of because I saw the film probably right before this firestorm started, and she is incredible in it. Like, actually, might be my favorite performance by anyone this year. Um, so it would have been a bit wishful of me to predict her, and I think if she got in, it would kind of change how people campaign because it's such a small movie and it literally just came about through word of mouth. And I think she will get a lot of number one votes because over 100, maybe even 150 big name like and actors who are Academy members have publicly supported this performance. So she has a lot of number one votes in the bag, but it might just be a case of there being a lot of other people who haven't seen the film. So I think I have to play it safe with this five, but also look out. It would, I'm not saying it's likely, but it could happen. And I think it would be really fucking awesome if it did happen. And it would make for some great reaction video content from me. But I also just want to say, try and check out that movie too, Leslie, awards contender or not. Raspberry's performance truly is phenomenal in that film. And I think you'd have to have a heart of stone not to be moved by what she does there. Anyway, back to the video. Margot Robbie, I have around, love her in Babylon. She doesn't have like, she's not carrying the movie though. She's not like on screen the whole time. There are stretches where she isn't there because it is such a big sprawling ensemble piece, and I don't think the film has the legs to carry her into a nomination this time around. Even though I think her character does a lot of what Blonde failed to do for Marilyn Monroe. There's a lot of Monroe in her character, I think, and I think Babylon does that a lot better than Blonde did. But look, people love Ana de Armas. I think she's going to get in. Then we have Olivia Colman for Empire of Light. Not feeling strong, but the film is probably looking at a cinematography nomination, so you can never count out Colman. Emma Thompson hasn't really happened yet besides BAFTA. The others I don't really. Naomi Aki, I don't know why I keep putting her on here. She hasn't gotten in anywhere. And then Chastain the Good Nurse just to go along with Redmayne and fresh off her win. But I really think this is limited to the top 9 and really like the top 7. In fact, I probably should have Williams above Riseborough, but I want to highlight To Leslie because she's fantastic in it. Best lead actor, another one where I'm really confident in that top 4. And then that 5th spot is a serious headache. Brendan Fraser, I think he's going to win. I think he's back. He's making people cry with their speeches. He made me cry with his speech. I haven't even seen the damn film. Austin Butler, lock. Colin Farrell, lock. Bill Nye, lock, and rightly so. I hate that people are just saying it's a career award because I've seen the film and I love it and he is genuinely fantastic in it. I digress. I'm going with Paul Mescal for the 5th spot, and it's weird. It would be unprecedented because these would all be first-time nominees, which hasn't happened in a fucking long time. But there's a lack of options here. And I think based on looking at the tea leaves, I think Mescal is the one that makes the most sense in a field of people where none of them make sense. Let's bring up the list. Tom Cruise is sort of the other one duking it out. And on paper, it should be him. He's in a bigger movie. He's in a movie that's contending. As I just said, we have a history of movies that aren't contenders in other categories having actors get dropped out. Which could likely happen to Paul Mescal because I don't think After Sun's getting any other nominations. But the reason I just don't want to predict Tom Cruise is that he did not get a SAG nom and he did not get a Globe nom. The Globes are a body who love big stars and they have the drama and comedy category split and they still couldn't find a way to squeeze him in. And SAG, who are like industry, love big stars, so much respect out there for Tom Cruise, and the fact that they put in Adam Sandler over him, that's not me poo-pooing on Adam Sandler's performance. I actually think he's better than Tom Cruise in these respective movies. I love that nomination, but I just think Cruise doesn't have the runs on the board, and I don't know why the Academy would go any different unless they really love Top Gun and want to nominate it for something above the line. So Mescal makes the most sense to me, but it's really like not with a lot of confidence. You could also predict Jeremy Pope for The Inspection. He got that Globe nom, but that movie is basically just an even smaller version of what After Sun represents in the race, in that it is not contending for any other category. Diego Calva, I would love. I think he's really great in it. Not over Mescal. Mescal's probably my favorite male lead of the year, but again, kind of ditto for what I said with Robbie. The screen time's so shared in that movie that he doesn't really own it as fantastic as I think he is. I think he's probably my favorite performance in the movie. But again, the unknown factor, the movie not being a major contender factor, I think keeps him out of there. Sandler Hustle, I don't rule it out actually, and there are a lot of people out there who want to sort of take vengeance on him getting snubbed for Uncut Gems. But I don't know. I don't see it yet. Jackman could happen, but who cares about that movie? Tom Hanks, Man Called Otto, supposedly playing like gangbusters with the industry, and it's making money. I really liked it too, to be honest. I thought he was very good in it. Felix Camera has to be mentioned, although him not getting the BAFTA nomination, which was one of the only BAFTA nominations that film didn't get, makes it hard for me to want to predict him. And then Driver's there because Driver. Supporting actress, the category that has given me the biggest headaches all year, has kind of simplified itself, and really there's just two people I'm choosing between 5 and 6 that's giving me pause. Angela Bassett is starting to firm as looking like she could win, unless we see maybe a late surge of wins from Hong Chow, because a lot of people are saying all she needs to win is to be nominated, and she's getting nominated now, and supposedly she's really great. But it really feels like Bassett is a freight train that's not going to be stopped. Kerry Condon, lock, hasn't missed anywhere. Hong Chow should be getting in after getting SAG and BAFTA, unless they do a downsizing and just snub her, which would be really disappointing. Again, I haven't seen The Whale, but Hong Chow really deserves her plaudits and her roses this year. I'm very excited to see what she does in that film. Jamie Lee Curtis, if she had missed the BAFTA nom, I probably would have taken her out, but I think her getting the BAFTA nom means that she is top 3 there, because they sort of go 3 general voting and 3 jury, and I can't see her being a jury pick. So I think Jamie Lee Curtis is pretty safe in there, much to my chagrin. I love Jamie Lee Curtis, just not for that performance. Dolly DeLeon is who I'm going with in that 5th spot, but it is really genuinely 51-49 between her and Stephanie Hsu for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it sucks because both of these people are awesome, relative newcomers, at least newcomers to the mainstream. Dolly DeLeon's been around for a while in the Philippines, but both such great examples of representation. But I'm sitting here really hoping it's Stephanie Hsu who gets in. In fact, I would love for her to knock out Jamie Lee Curtis, because Stephanie Hsu is probably my favorite supporting female of the year. And it's close. I really think she could get in. She got in at SAG, which was awesome, and Dolly DeLeon didn't, but Dolly DeLeon has Globe and BAFTA. She's the face of that movie, kind of, in terms of its awards campaigns, and I think if I'm predicting it for picture, it needs more than just screenplay to go along with it, and I think Dolly DeLeon is that other person that goes along with it. So I'm kind of putting a few eggs in that Triangle of Sadness basket here, so if it doesn't get picture, I probably lose this nomination too, and we see Stephanie Hsu or Carey Mulligan get in, because a lot of people are ruling out Carey Mulligan. I'm not. Her getting that BAFTA nomination was really interesting to me. You could argue that it was just because she's British, but I don't think She Said is as dead as we thought in this category and in screenplay. So at the end of the day, I will not be shocked if Mulligan gets in. I also won't be disappointed. I really think she is great in that movie, and I really like that movie. Beyond that 7, I don't see much of this happening. Jessie Buckley, my hero, sadly, I think has fallen out of the race. Janelle Monáe didn't really get anything she needed to. Nina Hoss hasn't gotten anything, but I've been saying from the beginning that nominating her would be an Oscar thing. It would be like Marina Di Tavira for Roma. It just feels like something they would do as a respected international sort of veteran. Not likely, but if anyone nominates her, it is the Oscars. So just watch out. Claire Foy feels even more dead than Jessie Buckley. And then I've slid in Michelle Williams here because we had a precedent set by Lakeith Stanfield campaigning lead, and then getting nominated for supporting for Judas and the Black Messiah. So there is precedent there. So her name's just on the list. Best Supporting Actor, another one where it's kind of just that 4th and 5th spot that are really tricky. Kye Kwan sweeping. Brendan Gleeson and Barry Keoghan absolutely will be a travesty if either one of them misses, and I don't think they will. I'm backing in my boy. Weirdly, Eddie Redmayne has become my boy this award season because I keep predicting him everywhere. And that's not to say I've ever really been a big fan of Eddie Redmayne. I didn't agree with his Oscar win. I didn't agree with his nomination for The Danish Girl, and I thought people were trying way too hard to make him happen. But I've always kind of liked him as an actor when he's in the right roles, and I really think The Good Nurse is a great role for him, and I think he's fantastic in it. He wouldn't quite be in my personal top 5, but neither would some of the other people here. The top 3 are, of course. But so I've kind of made him my champion this award season, and he's transcended beyond the Jared Leto archetype. Like Jared Leto, Little Things in House of Gucci, getting like a random SAG nomination for playing an over-the-top weirdo, but then falling short at the Oscars. And I think Redmayne might be transcending that, because getting that BAFTA nomination was really interesting. And that, just coupled with there not being a lot of other strong contenders who have having not gotten major precursors, it kind of just makes me feel a little confident about him. He could fall short at the end of the day, but Netflix are pretty good at campaigning, and we know the Academy love Eddie Redmayne. And I think this would actually be his most deserving nomination yet. I don't know why I just talked so long about Eddie Redmayne, The Good Nurse. I'm as shocked as you are that I like that performance so much, but I just think it's kind of cool. Paul Dano, I have 5th. He's my favorite performance in The Fabelmans, and again, beyond the top 4, no one has really gotten more than 1 or 2 big precursors. Dano got in at SAG, so yeah, I'm just predicting the SAG 5 here. But there are also places that have left out the Fabelmans guys completely, and it could easily be a case of Dano and Judd Hirsch steal votes off each other, and then our number 6 gets in, who is Brad Pitt. I know some people are predicting him, and I don't think you're wrong to predict him. I just have such little confidence in Babylon Above the Line. I love Brad Pitt in that, and I've kind of been talking shit about him all award season, because I feel like, can we just leave him out after all the controversy? But I thought he was really great in Babylon, and maybe like just as good and more nuanced than his performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which he won for. And clearly the industry don't care about his indiscretions, considering how much love everyone was showering over him at the Globes. But I can't quite do it. I can't quite do it based on what the film is as a contender. I know The Good Nurse is not a contender, but that performance has just shown that it has a life of its own. So I'm going Dano, but I think 4 or 5 could easily miss for Brad Pitt, and they could easily miss for Judd Hirsch too, because the Academy love boomers, and nominating him would be the equivalent of nominating Judi Dench for Belfast. Woody Harrelson I have, because I think the Academy really like him. He was a shock nomination for 3 Billboards. He has a very fun standout scene in Triangle of Sadness, and I guess it would be something to go along with that Best Picture package. I weirdly don't think it's impossible the way some people do. Brian Tyree Henry only got Critics' Choice, and I think Critics' Choice can help to predict, but when that's your sole nomination, I don't really buy you as a contender. People like Tom Cruise only got that. Jesse Buckley only got that. So I think you need something else to go along with your Critics' Choice nomination for me to want to predict you. Tom Hanks and Elvis, he hasn't really gotten in anywhere yet, but I still fear him. Albrecht Shook for All Quiet on the Western Front, he got a BAFTA nom even when the lead of the film didn't. And I just got to say, this would be fucking awesome, because I really love him in that film. He's a great actor. I've seen him in a couple of things. And he just seems like a genuine dude, and it would be really cool to see him get to show up at the Oscars as a nominee. Unlikely, but it would be neat. Ben Whishaw, some people were saying this could happen, but the fact that he didn't even make the BAFTA 6 after getting on that shortlist, no. It would be such a weird nomination if the film missed everything else. Michael Ward, I've just put in because he got a BAFTA nom, but that's probably just a BAFTA thing. And then Mark Rylance for Bones and All, just because I love him. It's not going to happen, but I like having his name there. Okay, original screenplay feels cut and dry. I can keep this one a bit shorter. Banshees, Everything Everywhere, still the 2 duking it out for the win. Extremely confident in Tar, extremely confident in The Fabelmans. And 5th, if what I think is going to happen in Best Picture happens, it has to be Triangle of Sadness. What else could it be? I was hoping it would be that number 6 After Sun, but it just feels too unlikely at this point. Babylon, I would nominate it, but no one cares. Decision to Leave. The Menu is one I've kind of been big on all year, and it wouldn't shock me still, but it just hasn't gotten in anywhere else for screenplay. And then Elvis and Nope rounding out that, but I'm very confident in that top 5. Best Adapted Screenplay. This one's kind of a shit show now. It kind of feels like anything could get snubbed. I think there's a pretty clear sort of top 6 that people are choosing between, and I feel like anything from 1 to 5 could get snubbed, except kind of The Whale. The Whale has kind of reemerged as a a contender to win this category, especially if it gets a Best Picture nomination when none of these other films do. Women Talking, I'm still predicting. I know it got goose egged at the BAFTAs, but it was pretty clear from the shortlist that the BAFTAs did not like that movie. So I still feel okay about it getting in here because it's been winning awards. Living is one that a lot of people are taking out, but I'm leaving it in because I think there's a lot of respect out there for Kazuo Ishiguro's name. It's a very nicely done adaptation of a beloved film. I haven't seen Ikaru, unfortunately. I plan to once I get the chance, but I really thought it was a beautifully written film, and people really, really like it. Like audience types, industry types really like the movie. I'm not saying I think it's the best picture nom, but I'm saying I feel weirdly confident about it getting in for screenplay, and I think that is kind of just a gut feeling. Glass Onion, I do kind of feel is snubbable. I don't think it'll get snubbed. Missing the BAFTA nom was really weird, but I still feel okay about it. I think it follows the path that the first one did. And then fifth, I've got She Said, which might be going out on a limb here, but it's just a gut feeling. This whole category is based on gut feelings for me. I don't have any data. It got the BAFTA nom, which I think helps. And the one it's kind of alternating with is All Quiet on the Western Front at 6th. I know most people are predicting that, and I know 1917 got that nomination as a war film, but we have to remember that film was like a top 3 contender in picture, whereas Western Front I don't think is quite that, and I think it's going to do well with text, but do we really want to predict it for every single category like the BAFTAs gave it? It's not going to do as well as it did at BAFTAs. It's going to do very well, and it could be one of the most nominated films of the night, but I am going to leave it out of screenplay. Could be to my own detriment, but I think Glass Onion kind of fills that blockbustery type spot. I don't know. I'm just, again, pure gut feeling this category. And you could even predict Top Gun. They're not above nominating blockbusters. They nominated Dune even when it didn't get in for director. But I don't know. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, I don't think really happens now. The Quiet Girl I've put in because I really do think it's a big international contender now. And it got that BAFTA nom, which is pretty interesting. And White Noise, Bones and All, Avatar, The Batman. I'd just be repeating myself if I discussed those ones. So yeah, I think pick 5 films out of that top 7. And I think you should get 4 out of 5, maybe 3. Cinematography has been a really, really tricky one for me to predict, and I think I spent more time on it than a lot of other categories here, and I was really trying to go into what people are saying, what did Gold Derby think, what do the Oscars tend to line up with, how did they do in the guilds, how did they do in the precursor awards, because they're not always one and the same. And it feels like Top Gun Maverick and Empire of Light have emerged as the 2 that have gotten pretty much every precursor they need. So I think they're very safe in terms of predictions. I know Empire of Light probably isn't Roger Deakins' best work, but I haven't seen it yet. It's not out here till March, but it is Roger Deakins, and that's kind of enough. I've gone with All Quiet. I know it hasn't really landed any big precursors because it surged so late, but if it is the best picture contender we think it is, how can it not get in for cinematography? It's a fucking war movie, and a really good looking one at that. And 4th, I'm weirdly confident in Elvis. The 5th spot is a total blind throw at the dartboard, but Elvis got the Cinematographers Guild, and it got BAFTA. And I feel like the fact that it got like 9 BAFTA nominations shows massive industry support for it. So I am kind of predicting Elvis to be a tech juggernaut here. And I'm going off of that Cinematographer Guild nomination. And I think the ASC, they usually go 4 out of 5 with what the Oscars 5 are. And the one I've subbed out here is Bardo for All Quiet on the Western Front as their foreign pick. Bardo definitely could get in here. I know some people are choosing it. But I just think that the movies, so they're not above snubbing cinematography of movies that they hate. So that's why I'm leaving Bardo out, because I don't think that movie is going to be universally liked. So I've gone with The Batman, which is maybe a little wishful on my part, but it got that BAFTA nom. It got in at the Cinematographer Guild, and I do think it's hopefully going to show up for a few tech categories. So that's my... Also, Greg Fraser is a name, whereas not all of these other people are names. Some of them are, like Janusz Kaminski and Darius Konji. But Greg Fraser's sort of hot right now. And maybe they will just want to throw him in there again. And I would even argue that the Batman has even better cinematography than Dune, which he won for. Avatar, I don't think you can count out. The first one might have even won this award, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe it's just a bit too digital for people, and it's starting to not look like the juggernaut that first movie was, even though I think it's a better movie. But it could anything from 6 to 9 could get in here. Like anything from 5 to 9. Very, very close for me because they all have something going for them. Bardo did get that Guild nomination. The Fablemans, I think, got the period Guild nomination too. I just don't really buy it here. And Babylon probably would get in if the movie was more of a Best Picture contender. Everything else is just kind of making up the numbers here. Costume design. This is really the one shoe-in win that I think Black Panther might have outside of Angela Bassett. Elvis could win this too. I hope not. Babylon, I feel pretty safe. It's one of like 2 or 3 that I do feel safe about Babylon getting nominated in. The Woman King, sort of similar vibe to Black Panther, just very impressive costumes. And Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, I'm going with. Originally, I've kind of had this in my 5 for a while because it does feel like that lone nomination, especially because it's a film that is about costumes, and I've seen it and the costumes are delightful in it. And I think the only thing that got it back in is that Fablemans has kind of fallen off, and I don't know if it's going to be that the Irishman dudes in suits getting nominated for costumes type movie. I also do have this as one of the few texts that I see All Quiet on the Western Front missing. So here's the whole list. Amsterdam, I was pretty tempted to put in because it got nominated at the BAFTAs, which was like the only thing it got. And it also made the makeup shortlist. So I think these industry people have probably been shown stuff about how impressive that sort of stuff is in those films. I don't quite have the stones to predict it, but it's one to watch out for. Everything Everywhere would be so deserved because the Jobu Tupaki costumes are so good, but I just don't. I'm not predicting Everything Everywhere to overperform in text, and that's not me saying I don't think it's a strong Best Picture win contender because I do think it is, but it didn't get on every shortlist, so I don't think they're going to go gaga for it in text, but I think it's going to do solidly enough. But I think this is one that it's not quite going to get into. Fableman's All Quiet. I just don't know if I see them here. I think there's got to be some variety somewhere. We can't just predict like the same 6 movies in every tech category, which is why I think sometimes we do have to get a Mrs. Harris type movie sliding in there. And then a lot of the other ones here have like sort of noteworthy names behind the costumes or just movies with interesting costume design that I could see, but I don't think they're likely. Best editing, I'm weirdly confident in this 5. You could argue that there's a couple others outside of this that people are predicting, but Top Gun, Maverick, and Everything Everywhere, I think are duking it out for the win. And I'm going to be looking out for the sound category because Everything Everywhere, I think, is on the cusp of that. And if Everything Everywhere gets that sound nomination, maybe I'll start to think it could win editing. But as it stands, I think Top Gun is the front runner for that. Elvis is 100% getting in. These are the fucking people who nominated, who gave Bohemian Rhapsody the win for best editing. So Elvis, which is an equally terribly edited movie, maybe even worse, it's definitely getting because it has a lot of editing. I've accepted that. It's ridiculous, but it's getting in. It should be Babylon in that spot. All Quiet on the Western Front, I'm putting in because how do you not? That movie has amazing editing. They tend to go for war films in editing and sound categories. So I think we have to predict that. And then I'm going with Banshees over the likes of Fablemans and Avatar, purely because I think it's a top Best Picture contender. These films are all Best Picture nominees likely, but really Everything Everywhere and Banshees are the 2 that I think are duking it out to win Best Picture. So that's why I kind of have Banshees in there above Fablemans, because there is a big Best Picture correlation but with editing. And I think it might just be a case of people loving the movie enough that they put it in. Could be Avatar, but it's long and that might be starting to annoy people. And again, the film has kind of been running out of steam in the latter half of this awards season. The Fablemans could get in. I feel like I am kind of I'm predicting a bit of an underperformance from the Fablemans, but I also don't think it needs a lot of these texts. Tar wouldn't shock me either. Babylon wouldn't shock me. would be deserving. The others I don't really see happening, despite how deserving Decision to Leave and After Sun would be. But I feel pretty good about that 5. Makeup and hairstyling is a tricky one outside of that top 3. I'm very confident in the Whale, Elvis, and the Batman. And then here, I'm bringing up the whole list. I really think anything from like 4th to 8th could get in. I'm not going to predict Black Panther because the first one didn't get in, even when that was a juggernaut. And then you can make a case for all of these. All Quiet, again, if I do predict it as that tech juggernaut. And again, I don't think it's getting in for everything. So I don't feel like I have to have it missing here. I think it can get in here, absolutely. Blonde, you can make a case because makeup often goes with acting wins and acting nominations. And while there's not a ton going on there, they genuinely did a really good job having Ana de Armas match Marilyn Monroe's likeness. So I can see it, especially if I think it would have to go along with her getting nominated. So that's kind of just going along with my prediction of her. Amsterdam, purely because it made the shortlist, could happen. I think they were probably shown some pretty impressive behind the scenes stuff of how that makeup was done. And then Babylon definitely could happen too, but I just think the makeup in that isn't really showy enough for it to eke its way in. And then I talked about Black Panther. The last 2 I don't really see, but Crimes of the Future would be pretty funny. So I'm tentatively saying Blonde, but that's like, it easily could be Amsterdam and Babylon. It could even be Amsterdam and Babylon over my 4 and 5, but that's what I'm going with. As long as you predict that top 3, you're getting at least 3 out of 5. I'm sorry for how long this video is. I like talking. Thanks for hanging out with me. Best production design, Babylon better win this. I'm pretty confident they really go for old Hollywood in this category. Avatar, I'm pretty confident in, unless there's a world where they think it's just too CGI heavy. But I think it'll get in. Elvis, pretty confident again, because I just think it's going to get in for fucking everything. All Quiet on the Western Front. War movies tend to do quite well with production design, so I think it definitely should get in here. And the 5th spot, honestly, I spent probably 10 minutes trying to decide between The Fabelmans and Black Panther, and it's so close. It's so close for me. I'm going with The Fabelmans just based on it got the Guild nomination, I think, and I think Black Panther got like the fantasy nomination or whatever, but it's really close. It is really close for me. I know a lot of people don't think Black Panther's happening, but I have a little more confidence in it than some. But Black Panther, I predicted to miss this and a couple others because I think if that got like 5 or 6 nominations, it would be like, damn, why isn't it a Best Picture contender? So I feel like Fellman's has to get a tech nom somewhere. So I'm going with production design, and it feels on brand. It is sort of, there's some old movie set sort of stuff, and I think so. I'm going with The Fabelmans here. Everything Everywhere would equally be really cool, and I think you can also, you can't quite count out the Batman. Pretty sure it got that BAFTA nomination, so it's on the cards for a few techs. It's just I wouldn't predict it, and yeah, the others. Original score, I'm very confident in this 5, so I won't spend too much time on it. All I'll say is, this time in 2019, I probably would have had First Man at number 1 and said it's gonna win, and then it didn't get nominated. So I still have Babylon number 1. I still think it's gonna win, but there's also a little voice in the back of my head that says it's not safe. It could get snubbed. Maybe the Academy just don't like Justin Hurwitz anymore. Maybe they just will not care about the movie and not nominate it because... So I'm still putting Babylon number 1, but I swear to God, stay tuned for my reaction video because if this misses score, I will be absolutely feral. I will be angrier than I was when First Man missed score. It shouldn't. It won't. Surely it can't. Pinocchio, very confident in. You never doubt the Desplat. Banshees of Inisherin, very confident in. 3 Billboards got in. This is even better, and it's been doing better with awards. Women Talking, I'm still predicting. There's a lot of love out there for Hilda Guanadotia, and without Tar being eligible, I think that love can get shoved into Women Talking. And The Fabelmans, I could easily see missing because I think the Oscars branch will be more discerning about what is original music in that film and what's not, because there's not a lot of original music from John Williams, and what is there is kind of basic, but he's John Williams. and there isn't another option that I have a ton of faith in. But look out for The Woman King. Because the Academy really liked Terrence Blanchard, and that score was pretty much the only nomination that The Five Bloods got. So Blanchard is loved in the Academy, and it is a good score. So if they do decide to say, hey, John Williams, you didn't do enough, I think that Woman King could be next in line. All Quiet also could get in there. It's an abrasive score, maybe a little bit divisive, but I think it's really, really good. Black Panther, the first one won, and I actually think this is a better score, but it just has not caught on at all, and it doesn't really need to happen. Everything Everywhere could happen, but just, again, I don't think it's going to get over-nominated in the text, and I've just got the whole shortlist here, and I don't really see much else happening. Original song, very excited and happy to be able to put Naatu Naatu at number 1, and I feel that something I've been saying a bit in this video, it's taken on a life of its own. It no longer needs the movie to be a Best Picture contender for it to get in and for it to win, and just seeing this get performed at the Oscars is going to be biblical. Lift Me Up and Hold My Hand and Chapa Pa all feel like locks. They've gotten in pretty much everywhere. It's actually been, and then it's that 5th spot that's been kind of fluid, but here, I'm very confident that it's going to be applause from Tell It Like a Woman, because it's fucking Diane Warren, and she gets in every year. Even she's been nominated like 10 plus times and never won, but she always gets in for this random movie that no one's heard of or seen. She did so last year, and we never predict her, and I'm done with not predicting Diane Warren. If Diane Warren is on a shortlist, you predict her, because she knows how to campaign for that one random song nomination. So, that 5's pretty set for me, and here are my other options. Really, the only ones I could actually see happening are Carolina, New Body, Roomba, and Stand Up. Everything else would be pretty surprising for me. Best Sound, another very tough toss-up between 5 and 6 for me. Top Gun winning, like, done. Avatar has to get in here. All Quiet, it's a war movie. War movies very often win sound, and I think that should go along with its editing nomination. Elvis, pretty confident in that getting in here because it is very music heavy. And 5th for me is between Everything Everywhere All at Once and The Batman. And you can make a really, really good case for either, because The Batman is by literally like the top dogs of sound in the industry, very elite crew, and its sound in it is incredible. Like that scene where the Batmobile lights up, like, oh, so good. And it's on the short list, so they're going to have to look at the technicals of it. But I'm going with Everything Everywhere because it is just that Best Picture contender, and I think that it should go along with it being a contender for an editing win. And it does have a lot of really unique uses of sound. Like, there's a lot of very funny sound effects in it. But it also, the soundscape's such an important part of that, making that film feel more epic than it is for how small the budget was. So the Batman would be the more traditional pick here. But I don't know. I'm going with Everything Everywhere, but it's very, again, like 51-49 between those two, and you can't really go wrong predicting either. So I think if you predict that top 4 and then one of Everything Everywhere, Batman, and Babylon, you should be pretty safe. Visual effects, jumping on the 13 Lives train like a lot of awards pundits are right now. I think it's only like 7th or 8th on Gold Derby, but supposedly it had a very impressive presentation, and the fact that so many of the cave shots are actually entirely computer generated means that I think that the visual effects branch will know what that film did and go for it. And the top 4 just feel like no-brainers. I don't feel like I don't even really have to talk about them, because Avatar is winning. I could definitely see Black Panther getting in, but like even the first one didn't get in. I know this one has better effects, but they might just look at it as, we don't need to nominate that for this. The others, any of the others, Nope would be a really cool nomination, but the other 3 blockbuster ones would be kind of disappointing if they got in. Nearly there, just down to our best feature categories and short categories. Best animated feature, very confident in the top 4. The 5th is a toss-up. Pinocchio, Puss in Boots, Turning Red, Marcel. I do think Marcel kinda is snubbable. It's gotten in everywhere, but only because maybe the Oscars branch will be a little snooty and say, there's so much live action in it, that's not an animated feature, but I that's very unlikely. 5th spot, I've gone with Wendell and Wild because the one time I took it out of my predictions, it got in. I think that was the Globes. There's not really a good option for this spot. You could say it's My Father's Dragon because Cartoon Saloon have a really good track record with the Oscars, but this film isn't quite doing as well as their last couple of outings. And despite it being pretty widely available, I haven't really heard a peep about it. I haven't even watched it yet. I should, especially if it gets nominated here. But it doesn't quite have the raps behind it that Cartoon Saloon's last couple of films did. And I know Wendell and Wild isn't universally beloved either, but I think Henry Selick's enough of a name. It's a really creative movie and it has a great social message. We all love Jordan Peele and he worked on it, and I think it's a really great film. So I think it'd be a very deserving nominee. But you could easily go for My Father's Dragon, or you could easily go for The Bad Guys, which is a really good film. It hasn't really gotten in anywhere, but there is a lot of love for that movie, and DreamWorks are kind of riding on a high right now with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. In Year O's there because it got the Globe nom. Sea Beast because it's very easily available. Apollo 10.5. Strange World and Lightyear I just have because Disney. And that's, yeah. I don't think it'll be anything outside that top 7. Documentary feature is regularly one of the hardest categories to predict, and normally I would be taking one of the top 3 frontrunners and predicting them for a snub because they always do that. They always snub one of the top contenders, but it's felt more cut and dry this year than it has in a long time. And I'm not saying that means the Oscars will do the same thing, but like that BAFTA doco lineup was pretty much exactly what you'd predict. But I've gone with like the obvious top 4 and then picked one from a bit lower down for the 5th spot. Fire of Love, I think I'm really confident in. It could easily be that front runner that gets snubbed, but and I kind of feel the same way about Navalny, but I just think they're so accessible. They're 2 of my favorite documentaries of the year. They're really, really great. They're crowd pleasers, in melancholy sort of ways about really sad issues, but they're very watchable and entertaining. And All That Breathes and All the Beauty and the Bloodshed I have not seen, but they are dominating the precursors. And 5th have gone with The Territory, which is a documentary that I've seen and really loved. I think it's really good. Probably better than Fire of Love and Navalny, even if I'm voting. And it hasn't gotten everything, but it's gotten a couple of major precursors, and it is Nat Geo who are very good at campaigning their documentaries. But I really think it could be any of these. The top 8 feel the most likely, but it really could be any of these that gets in. Moon Age Daydream I was kind of keen on, and I know it made that because it made that sound shortlist, but that doesn't always mean it's going to get in. Like an example is Welcome to Chechnya, which made like a visual effects shortlist, and it's like, oh, it made a non-documentary shortlist, it'll get in, but it didn't. So it doesn't always happen. Maybe it's a bit too weird and aggressive for people, and it does feel like that maybe that one that on paper feels like an obvious nominee but gets snubbed because they often snub a big mainstream one. But could be Descendant, very easily accessible, but it is kind of a heavy watch, and it hasn't really done so well in terms of nominations. I know a lot of people are predicting that one, but I'm feeling The Territory. Bad Acts Could Happen Too, lots of passion behind that. And the other 2 I don't know as much about, but yeah, that's my 5. But really, if I get 3 of these right, I'll be happy because documentary is always crazy. International category I'm deeply passionate about, and I've got the default top 4. All Quiet looking like our winner now. Decision to Leave, Argentina 1985, very strong after winning the Golden Globe. Close, which some people are taking out after it missed the BAFTA nomination, but I think people really like that movie. I'm still pretty confident it gets in, even though I'm not a fan of it. But it could get snubbed for like something like Bardo or EO, but my 5th have got The Quiet Girl, and I just want to say I'm really chuffed that everyone's predicting this now because it's one I've been predicting since my first video on this in October, because I saw it in August and it changed my life. I love it. It's one of the best films of the goddamn year, and I will be cheering if it gets in, and I'm starting to think it can. It did better than any of these international films at the BAFTAs besides All Quiet, and beyond like EO and Bardo, it really doesn't feel like you can make a great case for any of these. But again, it's a category where they can do surprises, like Lunana, A Yak in the Classroom, which like no one had even heard of, getting nominated over A Hero. So anything can happen here, but I feel like that's 5's the safe bet. I know a lot of people say EO because it's been a critic's darling, but that film is so weird and experimental. I love it. It's beautiful, but it might not play well for everyone. Bardo, ditto. It's a very stylistically aggressive and indulgent film, and it's not going to work for everybody. Corsage, I think, has some appeal, but it is. I've seen it, and it's kind of too boring for what a film. That film should not be boring, but it is. It's very boring. Saint Omer apparently very slow and experimental. Joyland could happen. There's a lot of really passionate love for it, but not a lot of people have seen it, and it still kind of hasn't made its way properly to America. Yeah, I know the voters will see it because it's on the short list, but I don't know. Beyond that, I don't really. Maybe Holy Spider, but I'll be pretty surprised if anything from that bottom four gets in. But Quiet Girl, I think, is a very accessible movie. It's very slow and quiet, but it's a film that it's so easily to emotionally connect to, and it makes everybody cry. So I think it's being on the short list is huge for it, because I think if you see it, oh, you got to vote for it. Come on. And it would be so good if it got nominated, because it would expose it to such a wider audience. Now, the short film categories, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about because, again, I haven't seen the films. I'm not an expert. I did an hour or two of research on them this morning, just based on what other pundits think and looking at letterbox scores and what people think of them, and trying to pick a mixture of like the Gold Derby favorites and then maybe some that just look like awards bait that might not be that great, and then some that are just really beloved and could get in. So, animated short, I've got New Moon and The Boy and the Mole, The Fox and the Horse. Those two feel like favorites. Ice Merchants is one that has exceptionally good reviews, like probably better reviews than any short from any of these categories. So I'm going to say that gets in. My Year of Dicks isn't a favorite. Maybe I'm just predicting it because I love the title. But it looks very progressive. It looks very heartfelt. I've seen people compare it to like a Richard Linklater coming of age movie, and I feel like that one could sneak in if voters respond to it. And then fifth, I'm going The Flying Sailor, because it looks like it looks like a very novel and interesting story taken out of a real life tragedy, and it looks like it's one that could get in. An Ostrich Told Me the World Is Fake, and I Think I Believe It looks like a very fun stop motion film. And then Save Ralph is that Taika Waititi rabbit film that became a bit of a sensation. I'm not quite going to predict it, but I think anything from that, I reckon if you predict 5 of that top 7, you should get at least 3 right, and that's kind of all I'm hoping for with these categories, because I did really badly with them last year. Documentary short, 38 at the Garden is about Jeremy Lin, and they like basketball, they like these sort of star power, so I think that should get in. The Elephant Whisperers, apparently really, really delightful. Nuisance Bear, I'm maybe just predicting because the subject matter is really interesting to me, and I know they often go for nature stuff here, and I think 3 of these are nature-ish ones for me. But Haul Out's pretty low down the list on Gold Derby, but it has exceptionally good reviews, and it's about a very relevant issue in climate change, and apparently it has some gorgeous shots, and it's one I'm plucking from the bottom of the list. And I think the Flag Makers Gold Derby have it number 1. It looks like kind of a Two Distant Strangers, which I think won. If not, it was nominated, but one that awards voters go gaga for, because it's like, very patriotic and has message and stuff, but people have issues with it. But I still think it should get in. Martha Mitchell Effect is another option if you want to do a political documentary. And then How Do You Measure a Year, Holding Moses, and As Far as They Can Run also have really strong raves. So I'd probably grab 5 out of that top 9 if I was you. But again, with these categories, it can be anything. Live action short's probably the one that I've most stuck to what Gold Derby are saying. Le Pupille, An Irish Goodbye, Farsha, and The Red Suitcase are all just kind of ones that everybody seems to be predicting. And then the 5th is one I've pulled from the bottom of the list, which is Night Ride. Not a lot of people have seen it, but those who have love it. Just going off of Letterboxd and looking at some IMDb stuff. So that's one I'm just going out on a limb on, but The Lone Wolf, Ivalu, and Nakam equally could be picked. So I think the top 8 are probably the strongest crop here. And yeah, so if you need help with your short film categories, I hope I helped outline a bit. I also would like to shout out, not that he needs a shout out because he's a way bigger channel than me, but the Oscar expert who does a really good job researching all of this stuff. So definitely check him out. And that's it for my predictions. This video is going to be like over an hour long. I'm so sorry. Hopefully you have time to watch it before the nominations drop. But yeah, I feel like I tried to outline a lot of my own predictions, but then also like other potential options if one of those speaks to you a lot more. I feel like I haven't gone too crazy with picking upsets with these. I am picking Andrea Riseborough on Gold Derby and Best Actress just because I want to. But I'm not going to do it. That's a very much like do not try this at home type prediction. So I'm very curious to see how I do because yeah, the foreign documentary and these short categories are often kind of what separates the men from the boys when it comes to predictions. So I'm really hoping I can do well on those this year. And above all, I'm really hoping that the movies I like do well. And thankfully, a lot of the movies I like are top contenders, like Everything Everywhere and Banshees. Tar I really like. But there are always movies you really like that aren't contenders, and looks like this year that's going to be Babylon for me. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what some of your predictions are in the comments. Yell at me to tell me how wrong I am. Or, you know, there are probably some facts and data stuff here that I got wrong because I'm doing this really off the cuff, and I hope I did the best I could. So follow me on Instagram. That's where I post everything I'm doing. Follow me on Letterboxd for my in-depth movie reviews, and stay tuned. Subscribe to this channel. It's been growing a little bit with how many videos I've been putting up lately, and my awards videos have been doing pretty well, and I'm really glad people are enjoying them. So it's definitely something I'm going to keep going with in the future. Stay tuned for my Oscar nominations reactions. Last year's were very fun, and it got one of my favorite reactions I've ever done to Kristen Stewart getting nominated for Spencer. Yeah, so subscribe. Lots more to come. Have a great day.